Kyle Lowry is one of the greatest Raptors of all time, but still struggles to get recognition from non-Raptors fans. Here are 5 reasons why Kyle Lowry is underrated. Let's get into it. What is up, everybody? Jacob Ross here with Amateur Hour Sports, talking about Kyle Lowry. He gets a lot of hate online regarding playoff performances consistently, maybe not as much anymore, but always gets so much criticism online, unfairly really, about his game, his play, how he does in the playoffs, considering his accolades and what he's done over the majority of last decade. So in this video, I've compiled a lot of stats, and I'm going to give you the 5 big reasons why Kyle Lowry is overhated. This is Amateur Hour Sports, where we give you raw and unfiltered sporting content 4 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So if it is your first time here with me today and you like what you see, maybe stick around and consider subscribing to the channel for more content just like this. Right away, we're going to jump into the list. Reason number 1, Kyle Lowry is big in big games. The big notion is that Kyle Lowry really struggles in playoffs, even though he is great in the season, and a lot of neutrals will recognize that aspect of Kyle Lowry's game. But what they fail to recognize is how good he is actually in the playoffs, because if you combine all 7 of his elimination games over the course of his career, when the Raptors were on the verge of elimination, whether it be a game 4, a game 6, 7, whatever. Compile all 7 of those games. Kyle Lowry averages 21 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game on 44% shooting from the field, not bad, and 38% shooting from 3. These are all very decent stats. And you know what? Maybe it could be better, but considering that in one of those games, it was in a 4-game sweep of the Cavs, so we got swept in 4, and in the final game of that series, Kyle Lowry did not play well, admittedly. And another one of those games where the Raptors beat the Pacers in 7, in Game 7, Kyle Lowry had a bit of struggles. When you take a 5-game sample size, you take the best 5 of those 7 games, Kyle Lowry's stats are very illuminating. He averaged 26 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, and 6 assists per game in that 5-game sample size, while shooting a true shooting percentage of 61%. That, along with a 46% field goal percentage and a 44% 3-point field goal percentage. So it is clear that when the chips are on the line, Kyle Lowry can give you a great game. You know, it may not be MVP caliber type play, but Kyle Lowry can give you a great game when the chips are on the line at the biggest stage. I think a lot of the stick for Kyle Lowry comes from, well, you know, the Raptors do struggle in game 1s. Historically, they have struggled in game 1s. Maybe not last season, but leading up to that. And any Raptors fan would know that. And yeah, Kyle Lowry does tend to struggle in those games as well, but a lot of that is also on DeMar DeRozan. I think the big notion against Kyle Lowry in the playoffs comes from how poor DeMar DeRozan actually was in the playoffs, because he actually significantly faltered when the chips are on the line, whereas Kyle Lowry still maintained his great play. And a lot of it is also on Dwayne Casey, because in the playoffs, when the opposition team has so much time to prepare for the exact opponent they're going to play, Dwayne Casey really struggled to come up with a plan B. So basically, if his plan A didn't work and he got figured out, he had nothing except for giving DeMar DeRozan the ISO ball, or Kyle Lowry the ISO ball, typically DeMar DeRozan. Every Raptors fan knows the absolute pain of watching Dwayne Casey ISO ball in the playoffs, not utilizing the players to the best of their ability. And that is probably what contributed to a lot of DeMar DeRozan struggles, giving him too heavy of a workload and making him take some bad shots. So I think Kyle Lowry takes a lot of the tail end of that DeMar DeRozan struggle, because when the team needs him most, Kyle Lowry can still give you a great game. Those stats really illuminate that, even including those bad games. 21 points per game, 6 rebounds, 6 assists in elimination games. In all of those games combined, he is 3 wins and 4 losses. So it is a losing record, but you can't say he pads his stats in losing games, because he's won almost half of those games. And in the biggest game in Raptors history, Game 6 against the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, Kyle Lowry puts up a 10-point first quarter en route to a double-double. 26 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. the biggest game. It wasn't an elimination game, but it was the championship clinching game, and Kyle Lowry still shows how good he can be in the playoffs. Moving on to reason number 2, Kyle Lowry is a clutch player. Between 2015 and 2019 in the playoffs, a span of 5 years only counting the playoffs, Kyle Lowry had 14 clutch baskets. Clutch baskets are defined as a shot hit with less than 2 minutes remaining with the score within 3, only counting the playoffs. The only player to be above that 14 number for Kyle Lowry is nobody. Kyle Lowry had the most clutch shots in the playoffs between 2015 and 2019. In second place with 11, 3 behind him is LeBron James. And in third with 8, 6 behind Kyle Lowry is Kevin Durant. Kyle Lowry makes the big shots. He wants the ball in those big situations for the Toronto Raptors. This includes the time where DeRozan was getting more of these clutch shots because Dwayne Casey tended to go to DeMar DeRozan in those ISO ball schemes that didn't even work. So Kyle Lowry clearly showing that in the big moments of those big games as well, he can hit those shots because he has more of those clutch baskets than LeBron James and Kevin Durant and everybody else in the entire fucking NBA. And I don't want to hear about Kyle Lowry getting the ball the most. You don't think LeBron James is getting every single touch in the last 2 minutes of a big playoff game? Kyle Lowry is an absolute baller in the playoffs, and it doesn't matter what type of moment it is. Even in those clutch circumstances where you gotta knock a bit off field goal percentages and makes because of the pressure on the line, Kyle Lowry remains a baller. Now we're going to reason number 3. He is so much more than just an offensive player. For starters, there is the leadership aspect of his game. One of the most important stats for an NBA player is their ability to elevate the level of their teammates. I continuously talk about this on that channel. Kyle Lowry has that ability to raise the level of his teammates. Let's analyze a recent example. Earlier this season, there was an 11-game stretch where the Raptors were missing Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol, and Norm Powell for all 11 of those games. That is an all-star starter, the starting big man for the Raptors, and the only true big man on their team, and their 6th man, who, by the way, is the reigning Eastern Conference Player of the Week to this day. We were also missing starting shooting guard Fred VanVleet for a good chunk of those 11 games. So Raptors fans seeing all those injuries were like, this is going to be an awful stretch. The Raptors went 6-5 in that stretch, and that doesn't sound crazy, but considering who was missing, that is 3 of your key players, and in some circumstances, 4 of your key players. 3 of those being starters, one of them being an all-star starter, and the other one being your 6th man. 4 of your first 6 players on the roster were missing, yet they went 6-5. How many other teams in the NBA could do that? Could you imagine the Lakers without 4 of their first 6 players not being available? This 6-5 stretch also includes the incredible 30-point comeback in the last 14 minutes against the Dallas Mavericks, led by Kyle Lowry with 20 of his 32 points coming in the 4th quarter solely. All of this without a true center, an all-star starter, and a 6th man for your team. I would consider those moments very clutch circumstances, and Kyle Lowry showing how he can thrive and help his team thrive and overcome the obstacles of not having those starting players, elevating the level of the subs who needed to take much more minutes on. He's also very underrated on defense, averaging 1.7 steals per game in his entire Raptors career, having to marshal some dynamic guard duos in the NBA, like in the NBA Finals having to mitigate Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Also with great hustle stats, like the fact that he leads the entire association in charges drawn and charges drawn per game this season. It is the nuances of Kyle Lowry's game that make him so tremendous. He's also top 100 on the all-time list of win shares, sitting at 94th position. Now, 94th on the list, that may not seem like a crazy thing, but that is higher than other people on the list. Hall of Famers on the list, like Bob McAdoo, who is a 3-time scoring champ. That's higher than other Hall of Famers like Sidney Moncrief, Dennis Rodman, Alonzo Mourning. Sure, some of those guys are defense based, but he's higher than other guys like Rick Barry, who is 24th on the all-time combined ABA NBA scoring list. And he's also higher than George Gervin, who is a top 10 shooting guard of all time. All of these guys are Hall of Famers. Kyle Lowry is ahead of these guys on the all-time win share list in the NBA. So maybe 94th position isn't that bad, considering it's all-time NBA. Reason number 4 why Kyle Lowry is underrated: his accolades. He has been an all-star for 6 years in a row. And in his entire time with the Raptors, he has made the playoffs all but his first season. That is 7 years in a row. And the lowest seed the Raptors have ever been in that 7-year stretch is the 4 seed. In this stretch, he has also managed an all-NBA appearance. Say what you want about Kyle Lowry, but the NBA and the basketball community really recognize what Kyle Lowry offers to the game. They recognize just how talented Kyle Lowry is. He is not only an offensive player who can be a decent scorer and a great facilitator on offense, but his ability to enhance the performances of his team and just elevating the level of his teammates. And people have recognized that. That is why he has earned these accolades over the years. It is not just numbers that do Kyle Lowry justice. Reason number 5 on the list: Kyle Lowry is an NBA champion. There are a lot of great players out there who have not won an NBA championship, and Kyle Lowry was one of the main contributors to that NBA championship. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard, the Finals MVP, was the main guy there, but the Raptors were a tremendous team, and it is showing that they are still a tremendous team because without really adding any star players in the offseason, the Raptors are the 2 seed in the East and the 3 seed in the NBA at the time of recording. You can't tell me that it was all Kawhi Leonard when you remove Kawhi Leonard from that team, add a couple bench pieces, and you are still fighting and contending for an NBA championship. And one of the main reasons for that is Kyle Lowry and what he offered to the team. He offered it last season as well. Like I said earlier on, Game 6, 26 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds in the NBA Finals clinching game. Kyle Lowry has that ring. He has earned that ring over the course of his time with the Raptors, building up to that moment, getting better every year, and finally, the Raptors got over the line and took down the Golden State Warriors in 6 games. So there you have it, 5 reasons why Kyle Lowry is underrated, and people need to recognize how good he is. Comment down below what you think about Kyle Lowry and what he has meant for the Toronto Raptors. But please like the video if you like, and subscribe to Amateur Hour Sports for more content just like this. As well, hit that notification bell because we post 4 times a week on this channel. Make sure you stay up to date with that content. At the end of the day, I believe what I say, and if you disagree, that's okay. We'll see you again next time.